And being fed that for so many years, it can really start to affect our identity, where we believe that is our identity. But here's the thing. What's up, my name is Christian. Welcome back to my channel, where I make content about mental health and social issues, all from a biblical perspective, so that you can heal, grow, and make an impact on your community and the world as Christ intended. Feeling stuck or behind in your 20s almost feels like a rite of passage in of itself. With the rise in social media and unrelenting social standards, life in your 20s can almost feel like you're trucking to a goalpost that you either can't find or has vanished amidst the clamor of inadequacy. This, however, is not how Christ calls us to live. He has something better. So this is something interesting that I'm experiencing recently, some sort of inadequacy or some sort of like feeling like behind, because I recently turned 24 and I'm thinking, okay, I didn't hit this goal that I had for myself when I was 17. And even though I know it's unrealistic, it's still a weighing pressure that has been increasing. But God has been working with me, God has been changing me, and God has been renewing my mind to understand that that isn't how He wants me to look at things, and that there's something way better that I'm not seeing, or I wasn't seeing at the time when I was focused on, what was supposed to be and I was supposed to be. With me, it was surrounding certain things with academics, graduating, things of the sort, especially since that was heavily part of my personality when I was in high school. So in this video, I'm just going to give you some practical tips of how you can break out of the mindset the same way I did, using the Word of God. Let's get into it. So actually, when I was reading into 1st and 2nd Samuel, this idea of this video and this general idea of feeling behind really hit home for me. And that is because we're going to be looking into the story of David. So let's start with 2 Samuel 5, so verses 4 through 5, where it reads, David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. At Hebron, he reigned at Judah 7 years and 6 months, and at Jerusalem, he reigned over all Israel and Judah 33 years. And here's one of the major first things I really want to talk about, how David was anointed to be king when he was really young, about 15 years old or so. And as many of us know, David was a shepherd before he became anything great. So my first point is that we need to learn how to be patient and learn how to trust in God's timing. I know it's not the thing that we want to hear, and it's not the thing that, that pumps us up the most, but there is so much value in learning and training yourself up to be patient. Because when God calls us to do something, when God puts something on our heart, versus the time where that thing is fulfilled or that thing is revealed to us, that time frame is within God's will, and it's not always our time frame. Sometimes it's sooner, sometimes it's later. I'm not saying that it's going to be it's when you turn 30 when things are going to start turning around, and when you're going to hit those certain goals or benchmarks. That's something only God would know. But what I am saying is that from the time that God calls us to do something, from the time that He initially puts that thing in our hearts, versus the time that thing is revealed and it's ready, God is preparing us. And trust me, I truly do not say this lightly. I understand that it is very difficult to be patient. There was a period of my life where I thought I was really patient, and then now I understand that I am a lot more patient and had a lot more growth that needed to happen. It is not easy whatsoever, but in that period of time of waiting and getting to that goal, that there are victories, and we can see God's faithfulness even through our failures within that period of time. Something that's really important to keep in mind is that while we're in that waiting season, I don't even like that term that much. Life is still happening. There are things that are still happening. We will still have victories, and we're going to have failures. But in those failures, we can see the faithfulness of God. And this is something I was putting a lot of time into when I was studying David, when I was studying the time when he was anointed to be king versus the time when he was actually king, which is the verses we just read earlier. David experienced a lot of failures, a lot of loss in that period of time, those 15 years, like being forced into exile and living amongst the Philistines. His faith was tested like crazy, and he experienced a lot of isolation. But he also experienced a lot of victories, like we all know, like him defeating Goliath, being anointed as king, and even his friendship with Jonathan. But in those losses and wins, we can still feel the faithfulness of God in David's life. And many of those failures or setbacks and many of those wins led to a lot of the Psalms that we have today. And I truly believe for a lot of us, I know for me, it's really easy to get caught up in pursuing that promise and pursuing the big goal, the big dream, and forgetting about the everyday that's leading up to that. And then no matter what it is, whether it's a dream car, whether it's finding, your spouse, whether it's buying a home, things like that, whether it's a certain academic accolade, whatever it is, we need to understand that we can't allow that to become an obsession. Pursuing those things is fine, but we can't allow that pursuit to become so obsessive that it changes to pursuit of worldly things rather than the pursuit of Jesus Christ. And then when we're constantly obsessing over those things and we hyper focus on failures or setbacks, and then we kind of disregard the small victories that we experience until we get to that mountaintop, we're disregarding the faithfulness of God, the goodness of God in the moment of right now. Do not fall into the trap of hyper focusing on the setbacks or what isn't quite right or what you didn't think would happen at this period of your life. Victory that he had was all for God's glory, and then it made David the person that could be king. So there truly weren't any true setbacks. There weren't any true failures, because every single failure, David learned something, and David was able to experience God's faithfulness and goodness, which prepared him to be king over all of Israel. And God cared about David doing well in the position that he was going to establish for him so much that he allowed all those things to happen, that he took his time to prepare him so that when he finally got there, he didn't fail. And the second thing I really want to get into is that we need to allow ourselves to grieve the old, but still walk into the new. For over a decade, a lot of us have been fed a timeline of when things are supposed to happen or how things are supposed to happen ever since we're early in middle school. And for me, a lot of it was surrounded with academics. Okay, by this time I'll graduate this, and by this time I'll be in medical school, and by this time I'll do this. I had my entire life planned out by the time I was 17. And being fed that for so many years, it can really start to affect our identity, where we believe that is our identity. But here's the thing, our identity is only found in Christ. We've spent so much time focusing on that and believing that and then waiting for that. So then when we start to walk with Christ, and then God has different plans for us, it can be really difficult for us to let that go, because it's like we're letting go a part of ourselves, an intimate and deep part of ourselves. And though it is important for us to take time and to allow ourselves to grieve that, we also need to be prepared to walk forward with Christ into the new, whatever it is that he has for us. And I'll tell you this from experience. My plan by the time I'm 24 now, my plan at this point in my life was to be in medical school, was to be somewhat in some other different state, right? But God has different plans for me. God had bigger plans for me. When God told me what I'm going to do in the future, when God put in my spirit what is going to happen in the future and how my life is going to pan out, I broke down in tears. It was too much. And the influence I originally wanted, the things I wanted to do originally, pales in comparison to what God now has for me. But the only way I was able to get to that point was from me grieving the old and letting go and accepting what God had for me. And the last and final point I had for you is something that we should already know, is that God is in control. I want to read the book of Habakkuk, chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. The oracle that Habakkuk the prophet saw. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not hear, or cry to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see iniquity, and why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. So the law is paralyzed, and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, so justice goes forth perverted. Look among the nations and see, wonder and be astounded, for I am doing a work in your days that you will not believe if told. Something I really think we forget is that the benchmarks of life have changed so much within the last 50 years alone. So with that in mind, do we really think that the great I Am, the eternal God of the universe, is bound by human standards? No. And he never has been, and he never will be. Trust in the Lord and thank him for everything that he has done for you, everything that he continues to do for you today, and everything that he will do for you. He didn't forget about you. And in closing, I just want to read Habakkuk 2, verses 1 through 3. And this is where Habakkuk says, I'm going to wait for God to respond to me. And it reads, I will take my stand at my watchpost and station myself on the tower and look out to see what he will say to me and what I will answer concerning my complaint. And the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. I don't know about you, but that was a really nice reminder for me that even when it seems like time is taking a long time and things are not moving as quickly as they should, God is still in control. God knows when things are supposed to happen, and they will happen at that appointed time. Trust in God and obey the Lord, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it's difficult. But that's all I got for y'all for today. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a big like and let me know down below in the comments. The question I have for you is, why do you think you feel behind in life right now? I'm going to leave my answer down below in a pinned comment. this whole thing of feeling behind and feeling like you're not meeting certain benchmarks can leave us feeling really anxious. And that is something you're struggling with right now. I actually made a video of how we can biblically manage anxiety, and you can find the link for that right here. And above all that, remember, you got this because God's got you. Peace out.